Welcome to another episode of Distory with Kate and Kirk. My name is Kirk from walruscarp.com, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to give you the Distory of your Distorian hosts. So Kate and I get a lot of questions about why did we get started with this, how or what does our journey look like as content creators, and why in general are we so interested in Disney history and content creation life? So we wanted to take a little bit of time to give a primer for that because honestly, we've spent so much time focused on history of attractions in the parks, but very little on ourselves. So this will be a great reference point for those that maybe don't know a lot about us outside of Distory. So with me to discover ourselves is Kate, the Disney Cicerone. Kate, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. I think this will be a really fun discussion. There's a lot of questions in here that people ask us pretty often about how we got started, why we do what we do, what are the ins and outs of it, and we've definitely learned a lot. Both of us have learned an awful lot along the way. So I think it'll be really fun. Even if you're not looking to be a creator, if you're just curious in general about what it's about, or you're just curious about who we are, I think this will be a really fun just bonus episode of Distory to get to know us a little bit. I think it's good to maybe start from the very beginning of how we became a creator. And Kirk, do you want to kick us off and go first?
Yeah, I do. So what's funny is we kind of frame this up together as like, how do we become a Disney creator? To be honest with you, I did not start as a Disney creator, but I started a long time ago. I'm 40 years old now as of taping in 2025. However, I started making content back when I was 13 years old at Six Flags Great Adventure.
Woo!
So I have a bunch of, guess what? They're not digital.
Wow. Yeah.
If you hear that flapping at home, that would be printed out photos. And I think I even got these done before they had 1 hour photos.
Wow.
So that's a little history lesson for you kiddos. So but these are disposable camera pictures. And I want to show you one of the very first pictures we ever took in the parks of Six Flags Great Adventure, because I was born in New Jersey, and that was my home park. And it is a horribly blown out picture while we were on Skull Island. But the best part about this picture is my buddy Mike is holding our Sony Hi8 camera that we brought on backpacks and literally on roller coaster rides. And we were obsessed with roller coasters as young kids. So I loved taking POV photos and videos. And we used to have these VHS tapes that came with like little 3D glasses that you could see the roller coasters. And I wanted to travel and see all of these places. So I'm showing pictures of Rolling Thunder, which no longer exists. That was a wooden coaster. This is inside of a barrel roll. Actually, no, it was a corkscrew on the Great American Scream Machine, which also does not exist anymore. And then here is a great B&M constructed coaster called Medusa, which is back, but in a different form. But you can see my buddy Mike again filming. So what I would do with all of these photos and front views of coasters, I would put them on a GeoCities webpage that was called frontviewsofcoasters.geocities.com.
That's awesome.
And so I would make every single webpage was for one of the rides, and I would have all of these disposable pictures. Back in the day, I would have to take all of these. And it was a great breakthrough when I learned that I could put multiple pictures onto a flatbed scanner. If you don't know what a flatbed scanner is you would place objects on this thing that it's kind of like a photocopier, and it would digitize these, and I would upload them onto my free GeoCities webpage with a little web counter. And every day I would look to see how many people came to the site. If it went up by 5, 10, 20, I felt like I was a king back then.
Oh,
and
that's so cute.
I also made Roller Coaster Tycoon versions of all of these attractions and parks that I would want to visit or that I have visited. And I would upload those for people to download and play at home. And I also brought 2 little artifacts with me that you actually see all the time at Distory. They're behind me. And this is like my love of Disney. The very first time I ever stayed at Disney and my very first Disney plush is this right here. It is the Cheshire Cat, which is near and dear to our brand and me personally, as Alice in Wonderland is my absolute favorite film. And the Cheshire Cat has kind of been synonymous with walruscarp, which stems from Alice in Wonderland's parable, The Walrus and the Carpenter. And then again, the spooky girly that I am, this is Skippy, a little plush from Alien Encounter. So that was my favorite attraction growing up in the Magic Kingdom. Thank you, Michael Eisner, and absolutely adore the fact that I still have him, because he's like, not only is he a collectible, but he's a little peek into why I love dark rides. And I was really obsessed with the movie Alien at the time. So I also liked the Great Movie Ride for that. But so I've been making content for a very, very long time. If we snapshot forward to getting into Disney, I always wanted to have some sort of business that was something that I owned and was passionate about. Theme parks are my favorite thing to do. In fact, my wife and I, our first overnight trip was down to Busch Gardens in Williamsburg and King's Dominion. And that trip was integral to our relationship, and it led us down this path. And so it was kind of a side hustle, particularly in 2019. And then it ran into COVID, and I started making content from my garage. And then full circle, we were unhappy with our careers and decided to make the jump and move down here full time in September of 2021.
Yeah. And ever since then, you've been rocking and rolling.
Good. We've been doing things. I like to view the whole content creator journey as like a snowball, but I'll touch on that a little bit later. Let's learn. We've been talking too much about myself, and I'd love to hear more about your journey, Kate.
Well, mine does start, of course, with Disney, and I went and found some actual photos of me from when I was 2, which was my very first Disney trip in 1986. And so this is me with Minnie Mouse and little tiny Kate. And I went with my mom and dad at that point. And then I did go again I went when I was 2, when I was 6, when I was 11 and 14. And that was all I went, I think, as a child. That was just those 4 times, like really made an impression on me, though. I have some video of me in the parks because my grandpa had like he had like a Beta Max, like camera, like a massive one. And so he like recorded us in the park. So this is me at Big Thunder Ranch, petting one of the little goats, which is really fun. And have my little Donald hat on. And then I have this this video is really sweet because it's just little 2-year-old me being held by Goofy. And I'm held for like 2 minutes straight. He just like didn't let go. He just like rocked me back and forth. It was really, really adorable. And I was like, I've been held by Disney my whole life. So obviously this is me in my tomboy era in the 40 years of adventure for Disneyland. So the 40th anniversary when they did Indiana Jones, and I have a little backwards hat and baggy shirt and different vibe than I've got going today. And
I miss that, Kate. Bring her back.
And then I have a tradition every time I go to Disneyland to take a picture with this particular statue, which is Minnie Mouse. So every trip I go to Disneyland, I always take a picture of this. So I have this like chronicle of me. So this is me when I was 14 with this statue. And she's still there. And that pedestal base, by the way, used to be one of the fountains on Main Street. So just a little history nod. And then, of course, me with Pirates of the Caribbean, which is one of my absolute favorite rides. So I didn't grow up going to the parks every day. A lot of people assume that I'm local to LA. I'm not. I'm from Oregon. So we only got down there as much as we could. And my parents were single parents at that point. They got divorced. And so we just didn't get to go that much. But it felt like such a magical place to me because it just took me out of everything else and made me feel like I was safe and that everything was just so joyful and happy and magical. And I was like, I wish everything was like this all the time. Right. So I didn't get to go to Walt Disney World until I was 18. I took a car trip down from when I was with my best friend, Mo, and we went down. And so this is my very first time seeing the castle in Walt Disney World. And I also went to Epcot. Anyway, so it was just kind of fun to finally get to go to Walt Disney World, which was really different than Disneyland. But it definitely accelerated my love for Disney. And I just started doing, at this point, lots and lots of research about the parks. And I would find things like, I don't know if I have it. So I went with my husband, Elliot, before we were married. This was actually 2005. And we did a big, long road trip. And we did exactly one day at Disneyland. I think this is right around the 50th anniversary. So you can see the gold accents on the castle. And so we were little then. We were little young people. I was definitely really, really loving Disney, but we couldn't afford to get there very much. And so I spent a lot of my free time researching random things that I had found in the park. So I knew that I took pictures of basically just random stuff. Like I have the fountain that's no longer there. That's the Roger Rabbit fountain in Toontown. And like literally this picture of a lamp, which I feel is so appropriate for Distory. I took this way back when because I just loved the details and I wanted to know more about them. So I spent a whole bunch of time in my free time going on like chat boards, like Disboards and stuff like that, and just finding threads of people that have found things in the parks and explaining it and the history. And I started reading any Disney history book I could get my hands on. And this was just for me because I just loved it. I wanted to know more about it. So as time progressed, I thought about maybe being a creator, and I threw the idea out there, and I was kind of doing some research, and I was like thinking about it, and I was talking to some people about it, and I don't remember who it was. I think I blocked them out at this point, but I was talking to somebody and I said, I'm thinking about like maybe making some content about this, maybe like an Instagram account, because that's what you did back in the day, right? And I remember them saying to me, you probably wouldn't be very successful at it because the only Disney creators that are successful are men. And I looked around, and actually at the time, that was fairly true. The only ones that were women that were successful were kind of like paired with a man. And there really wasn't that many female creators that were all that successful at that time. There was a handful here and there, but certainly no Disney history creators existed. And so I kind of got really discouraged, and I was like, well, this kind of seems like a lost cause. And at that point I was, my life was changing because I was starting to do things like become a mom. So I became a mom. This is at the 60th anniversary. I had 2 kids at this point, and these are my 2 sweet little children and the castle. And I focused a lot on motherhood. It's all consuming when they're really little, and so I did not have time for much. And I'd already knew that I probably couldn't do this anyway, but I still continued to do a lot of research and reading because I just loved it. That was my me time, was researching Disney history. I finally got to go on like my first solo day at Disney was when Elliot went to like a conference or something in LA, and I tagged along with him, and he had to go work. And I was like, but I could go to the parks by myself. Am I like allowed to do that? And he was like, sure. Okay. And so I did. This is me on Splash Mountain by myself for the first time in the parks, which I'd never done before. And I was having such a wonderful day. And I started taking pictures. This one, Kirk, was so funny because I was like, I literally took a picture of Toad Hall and like the eve of Toad Hall, which we just covered on Distory. And I was like, I was obsessed with this back then. So yeah, I totally forgot I had taken this picture, which was so funny. And so I took pictures in the parks and whatnot, but I still didn't know if I was going to do anything with it. In this time, Elliot and I became pass holders at Walt Disney World eventually because we just loved it so much. And this was critical because I went to Disney World with Elliot. I think our kids were with us, and I took this picture. I remember specifically standing in this spot in the Jungle Cruise queue, and I took this picture. And Elliot turned to me and he said, this is all leading to something, isn't it? And I said, I think so. And I had no idea what, but I was like, I think so. I just had a feeling, and he did too, which was so funny because we hadn't talked about anything like that. In 2020, when the world kind of like changed for everybody, like you, Kirk, I was like, I'm going to try to figure out what it is I want to do, because I knew what I was doing at that point wasn't really what I wanted to do forever. I was a communications director at that point, and it just wasn't my long-term passion, And so I read this book. This is actually where I dreamed up the name Disney. Cicerone was sitting in this exact location on the Oregon coast. And I read the book by Bob Goff that's called Dream Big. If you really don't know what you want to do with your life, this is a fantastic book to read to kind of give you some direction. So it motivated me to kind of put pen to paper and start taking some baby steps towards something I actually wanted to do. And even if I was still busy with being a mom and having a career and all those things, like this was what I wanted to do. So I came up with the name Disney Cicerone because Cicerone means like a guide or like a museum docent that shows you things you wouldn't know before. And it also sounded fancy, and I'm a little bit fancy. So it's just a little cursing.
For those that are listening, I made a small little and made it a lot bigger because we be fancy up here.
So anyway, but it also is after Marcus Cicero was the one that said, while there's life, there's hope. And I really loved that message that, of hope. And that's something I knew that I wanted to interweave. And I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I want to make content. Who cares what those other people said? I'm going to make something. And I want to make things that will, for the Disney history people that already know everything about Disney history, I want to go beyond that and tell the stories that have never been told. And so that's what I started doing. And so this is my first picture as like a Disney creator going to the parks. This is my first trip. And so I just remember I have these little memories of this is my first trip that I specifically went to Disneyland to, like, as a creator. Of course, I had like no followers. I had virtually nobody. And I posted for an entire year on Instagram. And like nothing happened. I eventually was like, I think I should probably give this up. I was talking with Elliot. I was like, this is silly. Why am I still doing this? I posted my blog and like my mom read it and my husband read it because they're super supportive. But like nobody else, my dad, but like nobody else. And I was like, this is like the worst thing ever. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I wasting my time? And shortly after, I kept like posting pictures anyway. And, my style is starting to get a little bit more refined about the story I was telling. And then, I had this moment when on TikTok, I had a post that blew up over here. You can see on the side, it was 20.5 million views for this Disney's Italian marble mistake. And it's only because it was paired with the Encanto song that went like super viral everywhere. We don't talk about Bruno, and it just randomly blew up. And I looked at Elliot and I was like, this is my chance. If I'm ever going to do this, I got to do it now. So I started posting every single day for an entire year without fail. Even if I was tired, even if I didn't want to do it, I posted every single day. And it was exhausting. But I did. And everything started to grow. I started to travel more. You see me, I read a lot on airplanes. That's where I get a lot of my research done because I travel so often. And then, Kirk, this is when I first met you. So you're in here too. Yeah. So we met at, I met him like online. He kind of reached out to me and told me like, hey, like what you're doing is really great. Like, don't stop. Like, you got this. Like, he was super encouraging. So I asked like, hey, I'm at Epcot. Can I meet up with you? And so this is our first picture like together, but I have this funny one because you don't know that this exists, Kirk. So I'm laughing because before I actually like introduced myself to you, I was watching you live stream from behind you and I actually took like a video of you from behind. So this is like a second before funny. I met you.
Look at me wearing like a flamingo shirt and stuff, like just so out of pocket. Still Cheshire Cat backpack though.
Yeah. So this is just, I just thought this was funny because I ran into it. It's like, oh, right. He doesn't know this one exists. So yeah. So Kirk was
That's
in there.
Funny.
Because he's part of my journey because we started Distory, which is this podcast. And here's our very first episode with us in our pirate hats. And I was in my mother-in-law's basement because I was in Baltimore at that point. So we've come a long way. And I'll wrap this up because we got a lot of other things to talk about. But I also did Mom Street podcast for a little while. And then I started publishing some books. I started writing books I took all of my blog posts and turned them into a book. I just kind of reworked them. And so that was my very first book, A Glimpse at the Magic, which was a #1 new release on Amazon, which was incredible. And this was the first book that I ever signed was on a book plate. So I took a picture of it. I was like, this is my very first book I ever signed as an author. So that was kind of fun. And then I got to do some amazing things like go to Walt's apartment and we did the Behind the Seeds tour. And I just started to spiral from there into this bigger and bigger thing. And I'm just really grateful for everything I've gotten to do and all the books that I've gotten to publish. And this is me in my current closet. This is where I'm sitting right now. This is the other side that you don't normally see. And it was a sewing room because I used to sew an awful lot. And now it's kind of a everything room. It's a catch-all. So, and this is the first time I held my second book was actually in the Magic Kingdom because Lem had purchased a copy. And so I got that one. I think I'll probably like leave it there, but because we have more questions to talk about and I don't want to take up all of our time. But that's just kind of like my journey of where I've gotten to where I am now and how I dived into all these things. And it's been a crazy journey, crazy ride, but really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 5-time book author with more on the way. It's just an exciting ride. And I would be remiss if I didn't go back to that moment that I saw your videos when they were getting thousands of views. And I just remember going, these things are edited better. They are manicured so appropriately with video clips and historical photos and documents. And I just knew, I was like, she can't quit. She can't quit because this is too important. So I just, on a whim, sent you a direct message just saying, you are the best Disney creator I've seen for historical content, and you just have to keep doing this. Just trust me, it will happen at some point. And then that week, it was like a couple million view video.
Yeah. You
was
saw
like
me
the
right before
wildest
it
timing.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like right there.
And that's why you're a big part of my story too for this, is because like I really was like, maybe I should give up. And I started getting like that's when you said that message was like, I had just had that conversation with Elliot about maybe I should like give this up.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, like don't give up. And I'm like, oh, okay. So
yeah. And I always say this off camera, in all honesty, I'm a big nerd for this stuff. Like I have photo albums of like Disney menus and memorabilia and tickets. And I used to do flashcards to memorize like ride stats and stuff. But you're listening to, and this is my greatest, I feel like it's like a gift every single week that I get to do this show with you, because I might not be the most well-read or well-researched, but I love learning and listening. And I feel it's great that I get to express that with you, because I do think that you are the most talented person in Disney history, and it's clearly showing as your journey. And I do think, honestly, at some point there will be a massive partnership with the parks for what you do and how you do it.
Thank you. That means an awful lot.
I'm sorry.
I'm like getting teary. I'm like, that was very kind. Like
it's truthful. It's so I'm just very proud of you, and it's like unreal. It's just like very fairy tale to see where both of us have come, you know?
Yeah.
It's a lot, but it's very impressive on your side, especially for a Distorian.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate getting to do this this show with you, but just in general, just as a creator, having you as a friend. I think some of you probably know already, but we chat and also with our other friend Lem, like we have a creator chat. We have a good group that we get to chat and bounce things off with one another, and it's really helpful to have people that you're working and running alongside, even while we're doing kind of our own thing. Just because we get to cheer each other on and help each other out. And I think that's really special. I don't think everybody gets that as a creator. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, it can be very lonely road. So, but without that, why don't we segue into the next one? And I'm going to ask you a question. What does a typical day or week look like for the Disney Cicerone?
Yeah, it's busy. I usually I actually added up the hours. It's usually 80 to 100 hours a week is usually a typical work week for me. And I sleep in, but I work really late. So I will be up sometimes till like 4 or 5 in the morning. And then my husband takes the kids to school, and then I pick them up later. But like I work really well at night. That's like when my brain comes awake. So I focus on early in the week, I sit down and try to decide what it is I need to work on that week. I usually have typical days for things like Mondays for writing. I know, Distory is going to happen on Thursdays most often than not, and that's when I'll edit everything for that. And beyond that, I just decide what kind of content I want to make for the week. I'm not somebody who plans out their content to the T. I just kind of like get a feeling of, I feel like I want to talk about this, or I feel I just learned this and I'm excited about it. And I just lean into that. I'm like a weird Disney creator in that way, because most people are like, what's happening in Disney or in history or in something, and I'll just like make content for that. And I'm like, I just make whatever I feel like. Sometimes people like to hear about it and sometimes they don't. And I don't care about that. I want to do what I love to do. So a typical week is just kind of just every single day plugging away, but I do try to take the weekends off as much as possible. How about you, Kirk?
So again, I feel like anytime that you are having and owning your own business, and you're the main operators of that business, there's not any time off. And I know that seems like a negative thing, like, oh, you always have to work. You got to remember that Kate and I love this. So whether we were getting paid or not, like we genuinely love being here. We love serving the communities that we've created and teaching them and going through their journeys as well. So for me, my typical week, there's lots of live streams 2 times in the parks, and then probably 5 to 6 other days live streaming at home. And it's just, I found that as a great way to communicate with people. And I like being an orator. I like speaking with people, and I like helping. Prior to this, I was the director of sales and marketing, but for a small mid-cap brewery. But if we backtrack, my degrees are, I have a BA in history and a BA in education. So I actually taught high school history, both world cultures and US2. So for me, like, it's so fulfilling to do that aspect of things. But every day is going to have making content, editing content, posting content, live streams, making shirts, publishing shirts, fulfilling orders, designing new products, working on Mode, our new app project. So like, that's the norm. That is the absolute norm. And it's funny because like live stream days are almost kind of, unless they're, sometimes because if I'm live streaming all day, I'll have to record content while I'm live streaming. So I've had to learn how to make more like ad hoc style content. It's more like gonzo journalism rather than necessarily like purely constructed. Although I do have sometimes topics that I want to discuss or talk about, and I'll tell those stories. But it just depends on how the flow of the day is. And then there's sometimes that there's just like spontaneous moments that are just so genuinely fun and I want to share. So we'll do those as well. So, but it's always busy and there's always something. And as my wife always told me, the work never ends. So It's okay to stop.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Well, that's a good segue into what we've got coming up next. So how have you dealt with maybe burnout or creator fatigue, which is so real?
Yeah.
How did you get through it?
Yeah. I think a big part of it is consistency will help cure a lot of things, which means as long as you're showing up daily in some avenue or part, it's okay if you miss a day, right? I think early on in a content creator, it's almost like you should have a lot more quantity because you're not really good. It's like almost like a baseball player. You need a lot of at-bats to figure out what pitches to swing at. So I think of it and liken it to that, where initially you really need to show up and put a lot out there. There was days, because I knew that the TikTok algorithm was going to be changing soon and the world would adapt, and we were still getting a lot of views. I was posting anywhere between 10 and 20 times a day, which I knew other people wouldn't have that high of a frequency. So I felt that that was like an inherent advantage. But then eventually it gets to a point where there's so many projects, for me especially, that I try to get 1 to 2 pieces out per day. But if I miss a day because I'm doing something else on the side, it doesn't mean that I wasn't working. It just means that I was working on another project that, like triage, you kind of have to put it on there. But in terms of it, I think it would be easier to get burned out if you were doing this and incentivized by money. And I obviously money is a part of how all businesses operate. It's like the lifeline, right? It's the blood, if you will. So you need that for flow. But if you're doing it because you genuinely love this and you genuinely want to serve the people, I mean, create a community. I don't mean make followers, get a large audience. Like, all of those counts and things are not significant or important to me. It's about the connections and people. We don't build customers, we build friends and community. And so if you're focused on driving customers and making customers, you're going to be very unhappy and burn out really quickly. But if you are really proud of something, and I think this is to Kate's point earlier, is that she just makes things that she wants to make. It doesn't necessarily have to be topical or timely because her content is timeless. It's all evergreen content because it's historically bound. So for me, I find that as long as you focus on your passions and the people that you serve and why you serve them, then it's hard to feel like, I just can't do this anymore. It's like, and again, I think having like good support networks, like both Kate and I have really great spouses, and we also have really great communities and creator friends. And if there are ever those like, wish you would step back from that ledge, my friend, somebody will go and bring you back down to life. And sometimes all it takes is like my kids to give me a hug, and I'm back in the moment of like, it's all good. Like my life, if this goes away, I'm fine. I have a great life with a great family and I have a good outlook. So, and I'm enjoying the things that I love the most, which just happen to be the theme parks. But how about you? What do you do?
Yeah, I think it really has to do with a lot of balance. And you have to start to develop, the more you're a creator, the more you develop this sense of when it's too much. And you're just like, I'm starting to get snippy at people, or I'm just exhausted all the time. And I'm like, you just know when you've like reached the edge and you need a break. Like, I don't know about you, Kirk, but that's how I feel. Like, you just know. And
100%.
Yeah. And so I've learned now to pace myself. I know I give myself the weekends off, quote unquote. I still like pre-schedule Distory to go on the weekends. I still do a story post on the weekends, but for the most part, I give myself like a good day and a half break from having to post anything or create anything new. And that really like gives me a weekly boost. And then when I travel, like I'm doing next week, I'm going to Florida. I try to pre-make my content before I go so that all I have to do while I'm traveling is just post it, which doesn't take that much time. And so I still have to follow up on comments and things like that. I'm still kind of working, but it gives my brain a break and puts me in a reset. When I'm in the parks, I can focus on truly just being present there, which also is like very much mental health for me to be in the Disney parks and just enjoying it. So, and people will always be like, oh, but you always have your phone or your camera out and all this stuff. And I was like, well, yeah, but that's fun for me. It's fun to like record things. It's fun to like,
yeah, you would do. I mean, you were doing it before. You were doing it before you got paid.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't about that. It was never about that.
Or I like write while I'm in line. Writing is really therapeutic for me. And so I find those things that I need to do. I also have added in more things recently because I went through kind of like a big giant mental health time this past year. And so I've added more healthy things to my schedule. I've eaten better. I've up daily exercise. Like, even if I have to work on my phone while I'm walking on like a treadmill, at least I'm moving my body, and that helps a lot. And also making sure I'm drinking lots of water, just like the basic health things. And having days when I really say like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to make anything. I don't want to post anything. And I give myself permission to say, you don't have to do that today then. It's okay. You can just rest. And the world's not going to end. Your content's not going to drop off the map. Like, you're going to be okay. And that has to be something you give yourself, or you will burn out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think a big part of that is probably like how big of an expectation. And you know what? I'm going to throw this in there because I think this is very valid and very helpful. If you ever get stressed because you're not accomplishing or climbing high enough or reaching your goals fast enough, please zoom out. Please. Your life is very long. You have a lot of time to do this and a lot of time to get good at this. Most people who are great at anything didn't get great until they were in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And a lot of them did restarts in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s even. So you're putting so much pressure on the now and here when it can be in a year, it can be in 5 years. But the key is continually chipping away, because you will have a masterpiece, because it's impossible. It's impossible to work this hard for this long on something without a massive breakout. It's just unfathomably like the way the laws of averages work, everyone else will quit.
Yeah, don't quit. I think you and I talk about this all the time, that it's a marathon. It's a marathon we're in. We know it's a long distance thing. It's not going to, and nothing's going to happen overnight. There might be wins that pop up, and it feels like, what happened? But none of it happened overnight. Like, you saw all these things that we've been sharing. That was 5+ years ago for most of those things, as when we started. It seems like we started ish around the same time, maybe you a little bit earlier than me. But yeah, I think it really has to do with a lot of balance. And you have to start to develop. The more you're a creator, the more you develop the sense of when it's too much, and you're just like, I'm starting to get snippy at people, or I'm just exhausted all the time, and I'm like, you just know when you've like reached the edge and you need a break. Like, I don't know about you, Kirk, but that's how I feel. Like,
I constantly think about that too.
Yeah, for sure. And so me too. I've learned.
All right, I want to ask a question that's very specific to just you, because I haven't written any books, and I think people would absolutely love to get into the Disney history aspect, which then leads us into your book. So how did you get to know so much about Disney history? Because you are a tome to all things Disney parks history.
Some of that I've already kind of mentioned, that, I'd just been studying it for years in terms of trying to I would find something random in the park, and then I would just investigate it until I got to the very end of what existed about it. But I do have an extensive library, and I have this really weird thing that it must be some sort of form of photographic memory, because I can remember, if I see words written, I can remember them. And I can see where they were located on the page of the book, like right side, bottom right. Like I can remember that of virtually everything I've ever read. I can't necessarily remember what book it's in, but I can tell you what side of the page it's on, and I can see it in my head. Because people are like, how do you remember all these things? You have like this encyclopedic memory. And so I don't always remember everything. Sometimes I have to go refresh and look up stuff. But something about that, I've just been really blessed with this gift of being able to remember things really well. And so because I'm kind of an input person and I want to know as much as possible about virtually everything, I just collected this massive library of information in my head about Disney history. And I'm very grateful to get to share it with people. It's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People, I think so many people are online and digitized. The fact that you're more analog with book consumption has been a massive strength of yours. And you're a voracious reader anyway. So this is something that you would do outside of making content. So the fact that you find these little primary source tidbits that you can share in your content really is a superpower, in the sense that a lot of creators are not going to go that mile of reading.
Yeah.
They just won't.
Yeah. I mean, to where I get my information from, which is another question I get, it's primary sources really are the thing I look for. So like original interviews with people, if I didn't do them myself, I'll read them. Or, photos, video, documentation, we go to auction sites, like anywhere where I can find a primary source where it didn't get passed down telephone like through the grapevine, because so much Disney history has gotten distorted by doing that. I always try to reel it back. Sometimes I have really wonderful friends that are at Imagineering or used to be at Imagineering that will reach out and tell me things, which is really, really kind of them. And just because they know that, I think one of them said, these stories die on the vine if you don't share them. And so they don't want it to end with them. They want it to go on, and they know that, I have an audience of people that want to know this information. So very grateful for all of that, so I can share that history.
Yeah, there's lots of legacy, and there's a lot of folks that were around in the 50s and 60s that do want to share that stuff, and they're coming to terms. So it's one of those like beautiful moments where they want. So I feel like access is coming to you with lots of folks in the future.
I'm so grateful. I'm already grateful for people who reach out to me and they're like, hey, like I had a wonderful Distory listener who said my mom was an opening day, cast member, the employee back then is what they called them. And like she photobombed Art Linkletter on, in Dateline Disneyland. Do you want to talk to her? I was like, do I ever? So really cool things I get to do like that. And, so yeah, it's been really fun to learn so much and then have more people want to send me things because they know that I'm going to do something with it and share it in a meaningful way. And I'm really appreciative of that.
So this is a tie-in then. Then why do we decide to make books on top of just making regular content?
Yeah, I've always wanted to write. I knew that from an early age. I did have a teacher in high school. So she kind of sneakily did something she wasn't supposed to. You know how you did like the standardized tests or whatever where you'd write essays from like creative writing? Yeah. So I wrote something and it was about, I remember the prompt was like smoke and ashes or fire and ashes or something like that, or embers. And
so what'd you think of Walt Disney and his lucky strikes?
No, actually I wrote about a pioneer woman who had gotten abandoned on the prairie because her husband passed away. And she,
good Lord, dude.
I know, but I wrote this story about how he would always make the fire for her and keep the fire going. And she was out laying in the prairie and like mourning him that he was gone. And she came back into the house and the fire had kind of like rekindled. And she took it as a sign that he was like still with her in spirit.
Dude, that's a great story.
No.
What age were you at?
I was 15, I think.
That's a wonderful story.
So that teacher, she was my French teacher that graded it. And I wasn't supposed to know that she was supposed to be secret, but she came up to me after class and she's like, don't tell anybody. I told you this. She's like, but I read this essay. And she's like, you need to get into like a creative writing program. Here's these information. She was like, you need to write. Like, she was like, this is your calling. And so those words stuck with me my whole life. And I was just like, I don't really know what to do with that. So I always just kind of wrote poems and wrote stuff that, wrote stuff for work for my communications job and whatnot. But finally, when I started doing my blog, I started thinking about the way we experience the Disney parks and why do we love them so much. And that was something that I find that was a big hole in like the Disney fandom is like, we love this thing, but why do we love it? Why do we connect with it? What makes the difference there for, bridging the gap between the history, the experience, and then also like what it means to us personally. And that's what made me want to start writing. And that's why I wrote the books that I did in my first nonfiction series was, helping us understand why we love the Disney parks the way we do and connecting it back to the human experience, because it really is what it's about. So.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
And then
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Like, don't you feel like the biggest part about life and what we leave behind is if you lean into your talents, right? And answer or try to answer those big, well, what if? Well, what if I dreamed big? Well, what if I wrote a book? Well, what if I had audiobooks? Well, what if, you know what I mean? And the fact that you're stepping through that versus leaving those as potential regrets is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, I ended up writing fiction books as well, too, and my impetus for that, writing those, not only was the same purpose, but I actually have a real big passion for people understanding what healthy relationships look like. And so I took that in that spin is that, they're romantic books, but it's like, what does a healthy relationship look like? And I've been blessed to be in a very healthy marriage for 20 years now, and so getting to know what does love look like in all these different avenues, that's the impetus behind those, but wrapped up in Disney history and magic. So
yeah, I love that.
Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about you, Kirk, because I want to know, what is something you wish you'd known before starting a clothing company or developing the app? You could go either direction or both. It's up to you.
So when I started walruscarp, it was called walruscarp Clothing Company. But before then, I threw around the ideas of the names Magical Park Tees or Magical Park Threads. And I hated both of those because I thought they were generic and they lacked all brand or personality.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not me. Like it's like I enjoy being funny and quirky and weird and odd, just like my favorite movie. And that's where the walruscarp from Alice in Wonderland came about. I wish somebody would have told me, and I wouldn't have been able to really understand it, as to, you are alone in this journey and it's okay to be alone, because eventually people will come along with you if you have enough convictions. So like while you're in I always likened my journey to starting the clothing company, because we had started in 2019. We sold our very first product December of 2019, which was polarized sunglasses, which we've made various different types of and styles, but it's actually these were the very first sunglasses we ever made. This is our old logo style and no brand colors. I don't know what I'm doing making clothes. No idea how to make these. No idea how to make shirts. I literally went to Ross and grabbed the shirts that I liked, the brand style, and was measuring with a tape measure and guessing on making size guides and tech packets. No clue what I was doing. It made me feel better. I met Ashley Eckstein, and she's the voice of Ahsoka Tano, and also has a clothing brand of her own called Her Universe. It's quite lovely, and she actually wrote a great story about her journey, which is fantastic if you get a chance to read. But she told me the same exact story. She goes, when I first made shirts, I grabbed a bunch and went to the factory and was like, I don't know what to do, but I want to do this, and here's what I kind of like. And they were like, okay, sit down. So I think that's the biggest thing, is like, envision everything like a tunnel. It is this very long, extensive tunnel, and it always looks dark and black initially. And you're going to have to step into the darkness, but all the way at the end of the tunnel, as the further you go, more glimmers and pieces of sunshine will come through. And as long as you keep going down that tunnel, eventually you'll be out in the light. So
I love that.
That's the biggest thing is don't try to do it too fast, because it's impossible. Everything that's built quickly fails quickly. And if you're going to do this and it really matters to you, that's why you should never chase money. You should always chase what's important to you and what do you want to leave and impact others in the world in a good way, like leaving them better than when they found you.
Right.
So if you can culminate all that together, I think that's the win, is just recognize it takes a long time, and recognize it feels like you're alone, and recognize it's going to be way more difficult than you ever thought possible. But that's why the selection of what you do and how you spend your most precious commodity, which is time, is integral, because then you'll be successful.
Yeah. You got to do what you love. You have to chase that.
Yeah.
You have to.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't love it,
You have to.
you got to consider maybe this isn't the thing to do. And that's okay. It's okay to let go and move on and try something new. So
it's that I think back to, I'm a history guy. I think back to the pursuit of happiness. That's the chase, right? That's what we were given, at least in America, is the ability to chase. It doesn't mean the ability to just have. You need to chase.
Yeah.
And you will catch, not all the time, but there will be moments. And that's one thing you were mentioning earlier on is just trying to celebrate successes when they happen. It's far too often we're too busy to celebrate successes, and there's going to be more rain than there is sun. So celebrate successes when you have them. And when it's bad, recognize that sunshine's coming. Like, it can only be cloudy for so long,
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent for celebrating the wins. And it's really easy. It's funny because it's the longer you're a creator, I feel like the more you get a little bit jaded about it. Like when you're like a younger creator, you're like, the first time your like video hits like 10,000 views, you're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And then it hits 100,000. You're like, that's incredible. And like, you hit 1 million and you're like, whoa, like 1 million people watch this. And like, now it's like, I'm still really grateful for all of those things, by the way, but it's like, that's not what you're gauging what you're doing on, it's more important that you reach the people that need what you're providing. And so you don't lean into the numbers as much. It's not as important to you. But you do but in that you get a little bit jaded, and that you're just like not having as many celebrations as you did when you were first starting out, and so you have to look for ways of like, okay, well, what's something that was really good that happened this week that I can celebrate, or, what's our next milestone that we want to actually like acknowledge, and I do that now with like when I release a book. I'm like, I'm going to do something to celebrate. I'm going to go to the park. I'm going to have a day when I'm just focused on like, I did this thing. I published this book and now it's in my hands, which is like a huge deal,
Yeah.
And I don't, even though I've had 5 of them, I do that every time because I was like, you have to acknowledge that this was important and you did this and you worked really hard to accomplish it. And, and it's okay to be proud of that, and be like, this was a cool thing. So, yeah.
It's so true. It's so true.
All right.
Can I admit something? I want to be human for a second.
Okay.
I am notorious for rewarding myself with food. It's the worst thing ever, but oh my God, do I love like having a little snack that I shouldn't have.
I might do that a little bit.
It's a guilty pleasure of mine.
That's the end of my day. I get a little tiny something, but
you have to, dude. This is the best.
I love that.
Yeah.
I have one more question for you specifically, Kirk, because you have the benefit of working alongside your lovely bride, Mel, in your business. And how does that benefit your marriage, your family, your career, your business? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'll show you a picture of just Mel and I. That's us dressed up as she's Bellatrix and I'm Draco Malfoy. Aww. And that was for last year's Halloween. Listen, Mel and I, our relationship started in the theme parks. We actually got engaged at Hershey Park as well. So it was always integrated, like that love of theme parks was always there for us. And so naturally we just had these things that were aligned, and then the business was completely aligned with that. And she was unhappy in her profession. She was an educator for a long time, but she was getting bothered by the bureaucracy and the lack of care for the kids. And I felt the same way about the beer business. Like our shareholders and our ownership group cared more about profits over people. And I just said, like, the only people that are going to care about people is going to be us. We just need to do this for us. And we didn't know what we were going to do initially. And clothing ended up making sense. And that's where we started. And now it's just grown from that. Like I never wanted to be a content creator. I never thought that was going to be a thing. I never thought I was going to be a live streamer. And Mel has been very supportive because like I do think relationships, we grow together or you grow apart. Yeah. So finding the right person for you that is aligned with a lot of things, and not necessarily like we didn't know we were going to be business owners. We didn't. But like Mel has certain strengths and I have certain strengths. I have massive weaknesses. They just so happen to be Mel's strengths. And Mel's weaknesses just happen to be my strengths.
Yeah.
So I work on sales, marketing, creative design, and Mel does almost all the back end. So like she's litigious and very organized and is great at customer fulfillment and happiness. And She's awesome at accounting stuff, like just all the litigious things that I'm more too loosey-goosey, creative, kooky, and I'll do it if I have to. But she has been so integral to that, and she's really talented at it. And she doesn't want to be like on camera. That's not her passion or interest. But she loves getting emails from customers saying like, "You guys are like, I had a shirt that didn't fit me, like, and it's been like 3 years, and you guys replaced it instantly, no questions asked." Because like we don't care about, you know, however many bucks we made from that sale 3 years ago. We want you to enjoy your time with us for however long that is. Maybe it's just a moment, and that could be in live streams or content or clothing. But thanks for spending some time, because that's the biggest commodity of all.
Yeah, Mel is such an amazing human. Like every time I interact with her, I'm like, she's just so lovely, and she's extremely thoughtful and just impressively brilliant. I mean, she has her master's degree. She's way smarter than I am, and it's amazing that we have such a fun partnership, relationship. You know, we're a loving couple, and we're really fun parents together. So it's the fact that her and I somehow, this business became okay for us to have as a couple, and it wasn't like one person's dream. It became like our reality together and our struggle together. And we, you know, at one point there was like, we were having a frustration point when we first moved down here. And I remember an argument that ended with, it's not us against each other. It's us against the world. Yeah. We have each other. Yeah. And that has always stuck with me as a very powerful moment in our relationship, that I don't argue with her about those things, because it's not her against it's us against the world to make this work. So that was really, really powerful. She's really brilliant with that stuff. And then she'll say the most absurd nonsense after that. So it's like, one part amazing philosopher, and then this other part of just like, I don't know what you're even saying. That's not even English. Oh, I love that.
But yeah, it's love.
That's
it's
so
love.
Great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's great. She's great.
With Elliot, he doesn't do anything in my business because he has 3 jobs. So like he's got his own world he's dealing with. Yeah. But he's so supportive though of literally everything I do all the time. And he's the first one to read my books. And he's the one who'll say like, you need to go to that thing. If somebody invited you, you need to go. I'll watch the kids. You figure it out. So people always ask me like, why aren't you in the parks with your husband? And I was like, because he's at home supporting me by taking care of our family, you know? And it's like, that's who we are. That's what we do. And luckily we do take some trips together and stuff. We're actually getting to go to Paris and Switzerland in the month. Surprise. We get to go back to Disneyland Paris. So cool. And I'm going to go to the Matterhorn, which I've never been. So I get to go see that, but which will allow us some time together. But having a supportive spouse is so wonderful to have somebody who could just like on those days when you feel like quitting, they're just like, this is just a bad day, not a bad life. Like you're going to move on from this and it's going to be okay. You know?
I agree. And you know, like just for everyone out there, it's not always necessarily about a romantic relationship or a coupling like that. Yeah. It could be your friends. It could be a partner. It could be a coworker. Yeah. But I do feel that humans are naturally tribal, and we better one another if we align ourselves with the right people. And to me, the right people would be people that celebrate your wins. They are there for you. Not only like they're not there to relish in your losses. They're there to lift you up in your triumphs. So you are the company you keep. Please surround yourself with beautiful, loving, amazing, supportive people that you can be beautiful, loving, and supportive to as well.
100% agree. And that's a really great segue into the next question, which is, what is the most rewarding part of your career? And I'm going to couple it with, what's a moment that made you stop and think, this is why I do this? Because I have a feeling they're going to be related.
Well, for me, it has nothing to do with views. It has nothing to do with profits. It has everything to do with the people. And we get emails and direct messages all the time from people telling us how we help them out of either a dark place, or I was going to do something that I can't ever come back from, or even if it's something simple like, I love when people see me in the parks and they tell me how much they love the content and stuff like that. That's very nice, but it's more rewarding when somebody goes, your advice made this trip Like that is beautiful, because it's not just oh, look what I know and what can I show you? Like I don't really do it for that. That's not interesting to me. To me, it's interesting to be able to make somebody else's life better and me be the conduit of that through the content or through our clothing, because they got so many compliments from cast members when they were in the parks. So to me, that's the stuff that's really impactful. And Mel and I just sit there and cry over emails that people just are pouring themselves out, that you would have never known that these stories, they exist, and what we do has a massive impact on people who feel alone.
Yeah.
And I think that niche of us loving the parks and being loving to one another is really impactful. And I'm not lost on that. It's a big deal. So that's the most rewarding. I mean, yeah, it's fun to have like media events, and it's fun to get access to things that normal people don't necessarily get because we're content creators. But it's always been about people, and it'll never not be about people.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. 100% for me too. It is always been about people. It was like, that was what I started doing this for, is like, I want to connect with other people who love this thing that I love. And I also want to help them in any way that I can. And so if what I'm doing, what I'm creating is not putting something positive out into the world that is going to be encouraging and helpful to people, then I'm not going to create it. Like, full stop. I just don't. And I turn down a lot of brand deals all the time, because not that I don't need the money. We could use the money, but I don't want, that's not why I do what I do. I don't want to waste my time doing something that isn't going to be aligned with my goals as a creator, which is to help people and to love them well and to encourage them. And I agree. Like, there's been the messages that I get from people that say what I wrote just hit them and changed something in them, or that, this chapter, like, I had to reread it 3 times because I needed to hear those words today. Or somebody said that they kept my book like on their night table, like their nightstand, and they read it every time they felt discouraged. And I was like, that is all I ever wanted from my work, is if I can help people not feel so alone, feel like they matter, they have a purpose, and encourage them forward out of these dark places, and give them a little bit of light and joy. And I think one of the most memorable moments for me, there's been so many of them, but one of the most memorable ones for me was when somebody said, like, you are like the voice of like Disneyland to us because of the way that you have described it. And I was like,
that's crazy,
right? What an incredible honor and privilege. Yeah. And I don't take that lightly, that, that I get to tell these stories that have been so forgotten. And then I get to, make this place come alive in a way for people that they have never experienced it before. And that's what I hear over and over again from people, is they say, I had fallen out of love with it, or I'd gotten really jaded by it, or, I didn't like some of the changes in it, but you helped me realize why I love this again. You helped me come back to myself and my memories and my nostalgia, and you helped bring it to life. And I'm like, that's it. That's all I ever want to do. That's great. I don't care if I make money doing that. I just want to do that. That's enough.
I could totally see you having some sort of audio in Disneyland in your lifetime.
Oh, I see that happening. That would be amazing.
I see that happening.
I would love that. Mm-hmm. People will think I'm AI, just like they do online. So it'd be great.
What's funny is we started all this stuff before like AI was actually big. So it's like we actually have some canon pre-AI to prove we're real people. We're legit. But moving forward, I will 1000% be an AI avatar. I'll be live streaming 24/7.
Okay, well, we said some positive things. Let's transition to maybe like, what are some of what's the difficult part of being a content creator? What's something you've had to overcome? Something you've tried but totally flopped? Like those kinds of things.
Yeah, I'm gonna rank this one like real ugly, because I feel like we've been really positive, and I think I think people want to know like where the bleed happens, because that happens too.
Spill the tea, Kirk.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things that happen in this world, in this space, right? Number one is that I keep a very small circle of friends, and that's just because I found in the creator space, a lot of people are very self-focused, and their goals are misaligned with my goals.
Yeah.
Whether their goals are relevancy or fame or money, they're not aligned with who I am as a person or what matters to me. So I don't hang out with a lot of creators because it's just not my purpose. And I don't find like I'll add value in their life and they'll add value to mine, because people are very, very different off camera than they are in real life. Very different.
Yes.
And so it's that online persona versus not. I think that's the reason why I like live streaming as well, is because you see me when I have frustrations and you see me when I have triumphs. So it's very real and visceral, just like life has ebbs and flows. The other thing that I think being difficult as a creator is you learn to have thick skin. And this comes over time because, you know, it's just like a punching bag, you know, you're not going to have, if you get hit once, it hurts, it stings. But if you get pummeled over and over and over again, particularly in the comment section and all those kind of things, it's really easy in the initial to get really bogged down by a comment, or somebody does like a reply video and just eviscerates you. And then you realize that you don't know those people. They have every right to their own opinions, but at the end of the day, we're never going to see each other or see eye to eye. And that's not what my community is. That's not the group that I'm trying to serve.
Yeah, it's not your
people.
So
if it's not a person, if it's not a person I'm trying to serve or trying to help or trying to better, and they're trying to tear down while I'm trying to build, like I'm not in the demolition crew. I'm in the construction business.
Right.
So I'd rather build foundations and help others than to just destroy, because destroying is easy.
Yeah.
Honestly, like
Rage
there's
baiting.
a lot of creators.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rage bait destroying is the easiest way to get views online. And frankly, I think it's fair if you have a very valid opinion on something being like, you know, I have disagreed with things that Disney and Universal have done in the past, and especially with Disney lately. I feel like we're misaligned with Walt's values. But we'll come back. We'll come back to that. I know we will. So it's like, I think about that a lot in the content creation thing. So it's really easy to get down on it when you're like, I feel like everybody just is focused on the negative. So yeah. How about you? What do you got going on? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I would say one of the
Get ugly, dude.
One of the most difficult things. Yeah, I would agree with a lot of things you said. I would say that I found out the hard way, I'd say, that some people were not what they seem, you know, and it's made me purposefully just kind of pull away from virtually everybody, whether or not they were those people. So I'm not naming names here. It's just like, I realized that I tend to be a very kind of naive, trusting human. And I've learned to not be that as much in this particular realm, because not everybody thinks the way that I do, and sees this. A lot of people are in it for money, for fame. Fame is a big one, like clout, like the media passes or whatever. And I'm like, I just can't relate to that. So I'm just not going to hang out with those people, because I think what Kirk said is true, is like you become who you hang out with. And that's, you know, they're on their own journey, their own story. They can live their life and do whatever they want to do. But I'm just not going to participate. You know, I'm just going to go do my own thing. But I do think that comments, I think, have been one of the most challenging things for me. Particularly, I hate to bring like gender into it, but I think as a woman, I do get some really, really nasty comments beyond like people just hitting on me, which happens a lot. And it's awkward every time. And I'm like, what are we doing here? But then people who also kind of minimize me as a person, because they say that chick or that girl, like they really try to, like, their language, they try to like minimize like what I'm saying, or they accuse me of being wrong a lot. And so I feel like I have had to overcome the idea that I have to justify myself to everybody, that I have to prove myself. And I think I've most of the part, I'm past that. I've recognized, well, those people just aren't my people. If they don't like what I create, if they don't like my voice, if they don't like my speed of talking, if they don't like anything like that, okay, that's fine. It's okay. I will take constructive criticism. And happy to, if it's really meant in a loving, positive way and they really want to help me, I will consider it. But if it's just done in the scathing way where they just don't like anything or they just don't like me, and I'm like, well, that says more about them than it does about me, you know? It's not about me.
I mean, I also think like you're a big leader and you have a community of people who love and appreciate what you do. But as an assertive leader, and I think we're a little bit more gun shy on this initially, is allowing people the benefit of the doubt, like meaning like everybody's good, fair, and honest until they show me they're not.
Yeah.
But sadly, it's a lot easier to cut through that initially. And you might give a reply to those things to see if they have a slight turn of heart, like maybe they were just having a bad moment or they had a different take on it.
Yeah.
Right. So like rather than like making a snap call, you give a little bit of that. But if they come back with that nastiness, like it's our goal to keep our community with the similar likes and values, because it is very true that allowing a wolf into the flock can totally ruin everything. So as a good shepherd, I think that's really important to just maintain what is important to you in the group. Because if you allow bad behavior, it's going to poison the rest of the group.
Yeah, and I've learned to use, the block. I don't feel guilty about blocking people anymore. I used to have that a lot in the beginning, and now I'm just like, nope. If you're going to come in here and be extremely rude or dismissive or accusatory of something I didn't do, like, we don't have, this isn't a conversation. This is just you venting at me and we're done. Like, you've lost access to me, and that is part of my growth as a human, is I get to protect myself and my peace, and I don't have to tolerate people mistreating me just because they might follow me or whatever. Like, no, like those people who are going to be mean and nasty, they can go do that somewhere else. They don't get to do it with me. And again, and our community deserves to not have that around. They don't need that. Nobody needs that. So yeah. So I think that's probably the most difficult part of being a content creator, is the negativity you have to just kind of accept as part of the game. And as an author, I have it too. And people give me bad book reviews every once in a while. It pops up. I've learned to protect my peace and just not go on Goodreads, because I feel like that's the meanest place. And it's not like I moderate mine on Amazon or anything. Like, it is what it is that's out there. But the really mean people who just really want to have their voice heard, they go over there. So I just don't go there. I'm like, they can think whatever they want about my work. It's okay. It's not gonna hurt me.
Hey, listen, it's just like there's like that old adage about like if you can't do, you critique, others. Like it's hard sometimes to review food for me, because I didn't make it, and I don't realize sometimes the process of the making. So it's like I can understand where they were going for, but I would have aligned it more towards this. So it's like, just because you can read a recipe doesn't mean you're a cook.
It's true. Talking about tea, let's touch on this one a little bit, because people will ask us this, and I feel like we have had a conversation about this before while you've been live streaming, but there can sometimes be a lot of drama in specifically the Disney community. And how do you handle that?
Listen, I know almost every live streamer that's in Disney World, because that's where I'm at and I'm well known at. And, everyone for the most part is quite pleasant. It's quite nice. It's Florida. It's like people are naturally a little bit more chill and relaxed, because this is like a vacation state and there's palm trees. It's like, relax, dude. It's not that serious. But I would say that, again, I just stay out of it.
Yeah.
Like I know what I'm doing. And I hate to say like the term platform, but I'm very, very conscious about who I bring on stream anymore, because I don't know most people's intentions or motives, but I know my own.
Yeah.
So it's like one thing I can focus on. And then when you've been in my world, in my space long enough, like, and again, this is like you want to make sure that what's being put out there is aligned with your core values and ethics and morals. And I've had experiences in the past where I've had to separate myself from people that I thought were really aligned with me, and they were not at all. And it took a while for me to figure that out. And the biggest thing for me, and Mel is on this, is gut feelings. And if I have a gut feeling that something is happening for an ulterior motive than out of the goodness or the passion or the whatever, I don't go down that road.
Yeah.
And I used to always kind of be like, because I wanted to, be like well-liked or well-received. And I just realized that I can still be friendly and I can still be nice and we could still chat. And if they ever come to me for asking advice and all that stuff, but I don't necessarily have to let them into the orbit or the influence side of things. And that's totally okay. And I didn't realize that initially. So I think that has helped me to skirt a lot of drama, but there is a lot of it. And I think it's because of, there's a lot of emotive things that happen within Disney, and there's lots of large, big personalities in the creative space as a whole, and everyone has misaligned motives. So that's it. It's like a little bit of a minefield, but as you get more mature, you get a little better at being a minesweeper and avoiding the explosions.
Yeah, and I feel like the more toxic people in the community will see people as competition or see people as people they can use. And I think that's the tough part, is that you have to really trust your gut instinct. And Kirk's better honed than mine is. So I'm getting better. But, you really have to look at, sometimes you do partner with people, you partner with other creators or other historians or, things like that. And that's great because it's mutually beneficial and you can help each other, and it's collaborative, like Kirk and I here, but there's some people that will try to just use your platform, especially when you have a larger one. Or there's people that just really misrepresent themselves, which is like one of my core values for me as a human is integrity. And is you're going to be the same person everywhere. And I have off days like everybody else. And some days I'll be more tired or a little crabby or whatnot, but I'm still me. I'm still the same person wherever I'm at. I have had people, and I will not name names, I have had people that have treated me like it completely ignored me off camera. And then when I was on camera live streaming, treated me like I was their best friend. And that is
ridiculous.
Crazy.
That happens a lot.
It does.
Yeah.
And so for me, because I go to the Disneyland side, Disneyland's very different than Disney World, and that there's a lot of drama. I will say that. Lots of drama. And I think Kirk also, because we are so much older than a lot of these people that are in the parks, we're like a solid 20 years older than a lot of these people. I think that does help that we have families, we have spouses, we have lives that we've lived before. Like, I think we have a little bit more wisdom, experience.
Don't you feel like we've done, and this kind of aligns with what you're talking about, I feel like we've done a lot of living off camera, and we've made a lot of those off camera mistakes that a lot of people are making on camera.
Yes, I think that's fair.
But I would also say I don't want this to be like all negative Nancy. So there is, I use this analogy and I say it all the time on live streams, so I think it's really important, is that there is a large enough pizza for all of us to get a slice.
Yeah.
And if there isn't enough slices, we could just order more pies. So the table is big enough. There is enough food for all of us to eat. That's why it's okay to be competitive in the sense of, I want to better myself because I think this person is really great. And I think that there's things I could learn from them so I can be better. I think that is a fair assessment.
Yeah.
But to want to tear down what somebody's doing in hopes of propping yourself up is the complete misalignment of how to navigate success, because that is not it, and you will get nowhere. Nobody wants to work with somebody that's like that.
No, it's so awful. And I think that there's no need for us to push other people down on our way to the top. I think we can just all look at it as we're all running a marathon, we're all running our race, and sometimes somebody might be a little further ahead than you, but that doesn't mean you're not going to complete your own race, right? You just have to keep going.
I love that analogy with when I first started live streaming, I used to do a show that was called The Rad Tea Party, and a very, very talented person named Mark Valentine, who still is heavily involved with Chip & Co. and just a great person in general. I had a moment with him where it was like this beautiful moment where we ran a show together, but it was a period where eventually he decided that he had to go a different way due to direction in life. And I have also been okay with chapters. It's okay for things to end because you relish in we had this beautiful time together, and I'm so proud and happy, and I am still a cheerleader for his success. But there's times where, like, it's okay to be on different mountain peaks. Like, if we're on the same hiking trail, eventually we can split and have differences of opinions and have different goals. But I'm glad that we were trail mates for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
That's okay too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Why don't I ask you a question?
Okay.
How, Kate, do you handle the pressure of always needing to be on for your audience?
It's so funny. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think that I feel a little bit more pressure when I'm in the parks, especially because something weird happened to me is that somebody who was a fan of mine, like, took a picture of me while I was like working, and I didn't know that they were taking a picture of me. And now it's made me like super self-conscious that people are always watching me. I'm like, that...
It's just like that, like eating pasta Kate picture.
I don't know. I think I was filming something, which is, it's fine, and it's like I'm not mad. It was just made me really like self-conscious because I know there are a lot of people that recognize me, which you and I have talked about as kind of like an interesting phenomenon because neither of us did this to like be recognized as somebody.
No. It's not our goal. I think like it was important in our journey to be well known because then we could have a larger scaled impact, but it was never about like a recognition, status, fame thing. It was just about, well, the more people that know that Kate exists, the more people will get touched by her motivation and history and her writing and in her content. So
right.
Do you know? Right.
And so it's been really an interesting phenomenon to go to the parks. And this happens because our content kind of reaches the people on our particular coast. Like this happens more to me in Disneyland than it does in Disney World and vice versa, I think, for Kirk as well when you went to Disneyland. But it's like people just recognize you and they'll shout out, I'll be in a queue and people will yell my name from across. I'm like, this is weird, but okay, hi, like, hey, I'm always really happy to meet people and hear from them and about how my work's impacted them. And it's so wonderful to get to meet people. I really love it. But like the pressure of being on, to get back to the question, it's like, I'm just myself, and so I don't feel so much pressure of like that as much as I put pressure on myself to be perfect. And I would say that the pressure that I put on myself is the hardest part because I want to make sure everything's just right. I want to make sure I get my facts right. I really hate getting Disney history facts wrong. It's like one of my biggest pet peeves of my like self, as I'm a perfectionist at heart. And I've had to just accept that I'm not going to know everything all the time. Sometimes even Disney history changes because we learn new things about stuff, and be okay with that. Being humble enough to admit that I'm not always going to know everything. And so I don't know if there's so much pressure as being on as there is like being watched by people and also giving myself some grace that I'm not always going to be perfect at what I do. How about you, Kirk?
Well, I think our chat right now is making a very good point that I had a picture taken of me and a video taken of me while I was live streaming by one co-host of Distory.
To be fair, I have not put that anywhere publicly since I took that. So,
but you still took it. It's the point of, listen, I think it's, again, a lot of people, it's funny. I just had a video come out this week where somebody had recorded me and I was live streaming at Epic Universe. And I was actually talking to another person who enjoyed the content and was just asking me questions. And like, they were like, it basically was like their POV of seeing the person I always see on my FYP, but not wanting to go up and say hi because they were like nervous or whatever. And so I was just like, that's like the first time anybody's posted that. And then I read the comments. It's just this crazy thread of like, you should have said hi. He's like so nice. And I honestly, the best way I can explain when I do live streams and people find me, it's like a walking GPS. You just have to look where the camera is and it'll be easy to spot me. Plus the Cheshire Cat, nobody else has that backpack in the park. So It's like so easy to see me.
Plus you're loud.
Yes.
I can hear you from like across the room.
They hear me before they see me is a constant thing. And I have found that just approaching people in a way that's interesting on them takes the pressure off of me. So when somebody comes up to me and says like, oh my gosh, hi, whatever, I always go into something that's either going on right now or something about their trip. And that takes the pressure off of me. It's very rare now that I've learned how to cater an interaction so that it's enjoyable for everybody. But it's not like I'm used to watching you, so I just want to watch you while I'm here, like a stage or a live action version of the thing that you enjoy when you're at home. It's very rare that happens.
Yeah.
It's usually somebody is a little bit more socially awkward, and I try to guide that conversation so it's less like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't really have any pressure to be on or off in front of people, because
just yourself.
I could be anywhere when I'm not on camera. Like, I've been at Disney Character Warehouse and people have recognized me and said hello and said nice things. And the conversations it'd be one thing if people were throwing tomatoes at me everywhere I went. That I would hate that. That would be miserable. But I don't cater my life to put myself in a position where people are really nasty about me, or at least nasty directly to me. You know, there might be people I'm not their cup of tea, and that's totally fair. There's so many great, wonderful creators.
Yeah.
And that's who you should align with, is somebody that matches your aura, you know? So, but I don't know, maybe one, dude, two, I'm happily married. This is fun for me, and I just want to connect with people. And I like talking. I've worked in sales and marketing for the last decade, and like before the company, and I've been doing this since 2021 full time. So it's just, it's a part of like who I am, and being able to talk to people is a fun part of it. But I never feel, even when I post stuff that's like not the best quality stuff, sometimes that stuff just like resonates because it's so visceral and in the moment, and maybe the lighting wasn't good or the hook wasn't great, but it's just like, I've seen tons of videos just smash off because people are being themselves in the most real way possible. And, I have a very different style than Kate, and Kate is always well polished. I always say it's like that. What was the African Queen, right?
Oh,
like,
Katharine Hepburn?
That's us, dude. Yeah. You're like Katharine Hepburn, and I'm, what's the guy's name? Help me out.
I don't remember. Who is it? Who is it that starts with him?
Well,
Trying to.
it doesn't matter.
I don't remember.
I'm a skipper captain who's like, he's all disheveled and a mess, but gets the boat down the river. And you're like super polished and well manicured, and that is like, but that to me is a part of your brand too. So I feel like there's an innate larger pressure for you to be more on, at least on even a visual sense. Like, I could never see you at Disneyland in a hoodie and sweats just chilling like that. I don't think could ever exist for you.
I did wear a Spirit jersey once when it was cold, but I felt really weird about it. I know.
Whoa. That's crazy.
I was like, nobody's going to recognize me here. This is my like camo. Yeah. Like, I can camouflage
Humphrey
myself.
Bogart. Yep. Perfect.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Humphrey Bogart. It's, I was just thinking about, the people that are scared to meet us, which we do encounter that, which I think is really interesting. And I would say my advice is like, Kirk and I, like, I don't know, I speak for myself. I'm super awkward because I'm an introvert. So I'm already going to be awkward. So we can be awkward together, and that's cool. And like, we can just be human. So
yeah. And
I'll give you a sticker. Kirk will give you stickers. We'll say hi. Yep. It's no big deal. And please tell us your name, because if you feel comfortable doing so, because people get like, they forget, they get like kind of like startled, and they like, they forget that they have a name too. And we want to know who you are, because you're important too.
Yeah.
So
I always do a reintroduction and say my name, because sometimes they'll know me as just Walrus or walruscarp and not necessarily know that my name's Kirk. So I always kind of do that, and that covers or bridges the gap. That's like a good way to do that.
Yeah,
but
that's good.
I will tell you, somebody in here is saying the Anna's saying the mayor of Epic. It is very weird at Epic Universe for me. I've never had this experience ever where it's like 200 to 300 people a day.
It's amazing.
It's a wild thing. To the point where yesterday at the end of our challenge day, I'm running to get to Stardust Racers because I just want to ride it at night. And I have 4 minutes to get there from Yoshi's Adventure to the queue. I have 4 minutes.
Stickers out of.
So I'm running, and nope, everybody was cool about it. I must have seen 3 different people, and one of them was running and goes, "Go, Kirk, go!" And he was running to another thing. So it was like, we didn't even talk. That was it. And it was just, I was like, this is so surreal and funny and weird. At least in that park. I mean, like, I get recognized in Universal and Disney a decent amount, but at Epic, it is a very different experience for me.
That's so funny.
It's very, very different.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, this one's a really great question. How do you define success now versus when you started?
When I started is easier, right? I think the simple thing when you're a content creator is to look at vanity metrics. So you're going to look at follower count. You're going to look at likes per post. You're going to look at views. Now I care more about retention because like in terms of, I still think metrics are really important. But I don't think about my 10-to-1 ratio of likes to views as much as I look at, well, how many people actually finished the video? Because if they finish the video, it doesn't just mean the hook is good. And so defining success like from a metric point, that is very large. And then I find a more deep-rooted success in personal fulfillment of things that I enjoy. So like there's what always is shocking to me, and this is not like a product sales thing exactly, but it is. So I'll make a lot of shirts for Epic Universe or for Disney or whatever, and what sells is always shocking to me. And I'm like, I thought this would have been the winner, but people didn't resonate with that. They resonated with this one, and that made me really happy. Or maybe, just maybe, because we do a lot of print on demand work with our t-shirts, we never have to get rid of inventory of something. There's always something there. So we have this crazy long tail of styles. And when somebody buys something that's like 3-4 years old, and I go, oh my God, I remember that one. Like, it makes me so happy that like people like that stuff and enjoy it. And, you know, it's like, I'm trying to tackle larger things than I've done before because I was afraid of those failing. So like doing a t-shirt design is not a big like swing for me. If it misses, it misses. And there's the only thing I've lost is time, but I've gotten fulfillment from the creation aspect.
Right.
But so to me, defining success is not quitting on something that really matters when it's really tough. Because I do think like there's these moments where I'll go, I would have dreamed to have had this life years ago, like in 2019. If I could instantly have gone from 2019 to 2025, I would have dreamed to be living this life. But I can tell you in the future, I know what success looks like for me. Success looks like being able to go to any of the theme parks that my family and I want to visit anytime we want without the worry or dread about, can we take time off from doing what we normally do with our business, and can we afford it? Like those would be what I would view as success, because we're not material people in terms of like stuffs. We're more experiential. So that would be, if we can do that, that would be tremendous. And that's like a personal one. But then there's like the greater ones where it's like we create our own. To me, like the future, you know what? I guess there's like some dream project things and stuff up. I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna stop, and I'm gonna kick it back to you rather than go down more rabbit trails. How do you define success now versus when you started, Kate?
Yeah, when I was started, it was definitely a lot of vanity metrics when I started. You know, and while you still have to pay attention to some things, you know, you can't ignore all of it, you know, and you have to kind of also learn, like, what did this one I thought would work and it didn't? What did I do? Maybe could I do differently next time? You know, and that's mainly what I use any sort of numbers for. But it's really been crazy. Like, I just kind of started posting on YouTube just because like Kirk was so smart in telling you like you need to like diversify and put your content everywhere. And so thank you again, Kirk, for that. And so I've somehow managed, you know, like now it's like I'm looking at numbers. I'm like, okay, like YouTube's at 80K, and you know, I finally hit 100K on TikTok. That was my goal like 3 years ago to hit that. I finally made it. It's like, but it's like you just keep rolling after that. It's like they're not like it's great goals to have, but it's like, yeah, I could maybe eventually put a Google Play button on my wall, but like I still just keep doing what I love doing. And I think that the measure of success really is in the amount of lives that I get to impact, and how meaningful that is for them. And also, how do I stay true to myself in that process? And so that I can continue to do what I love to do and be present for the people that I love. So as long as I'm doing what I love to do, I'm helping people in the process, and I'm still making time for the people that I care about the most, I think that's success. That's all there is. And, you know, it'd be nice to eat and pay for eggs that are really expensive, but, you know, you do have to, at some point at the end of the day, you do have to like have some money to pay for things, because it's reality, you know, we have mortgages and families and stuff. But that's not what I'm in it for. If I was, I would have quit 4 years ago. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I made great money in my previous careers, and I didn't feel fulfilled. There was lots of like moments where like I would take on new positions or new leadership or a new company and a new objective, and I learned so much. Like I wouldn't be the business owner I am today without the leaders that I learned from my previous occupations. However, if you want to get rich, this is the slowest, worst, most painful way to get rich ever.
It's so accurate.
It's the worst way to get rich. This is definitely not. But you know what? I do think like enrichment wise, like I would have never gotten as much time with my kids. I would have never gotten as much time with my wife. I would have never been able to spend as much time on the beach, in the parks, doing the things that we love the most with the people we love the most. So if I wanted to define and roll up success, is if you can do the things that you love with the people you love the most for an extended period of time, that is success.
Yeah.
It's not a play button. It's not the follower count. It's not the numbers, the ones and zeros in your bank account, because I can have none of that. And if I get my family and we get to have experiences together, like I'll give up every material thing I have to have that.
Preach. Yep. 100%. And I was just looking at, because I was pulling up some of these old photos, and I was getting to look at all the experiences I've had with my family, you know, partially because I do this now, you know, like, because we've been on a Disney cruise and we went to Disneyland Paris and we went to Disney World, but we did as a family. You know, sometimes I get to travel without them and sometimes with them, but I'm so grateful that I got to give them those experiences, and that's partially because I get to do this here. And so I'm very, very grateful for that. But I mean, I still have to pay for it. It's not like Disney's covering any of this for me. You know, this is still me just paying for it yet. Yeah, maybe yet.
I'll leave it at yet.
Well, there's another question here. What is the best advice for creatives or someone looking to become a content creator? What is your best advice for them?
I say this consistently. The superpower is not in your talents. Although I do think you should be a lifelong learner and student and always be trying to better yourself by 0.5% or 1% every time you put forth into a project or into a video. Like spend a little bit more time on ideation, spend a little bit more time on hooks. So like that is one thing. Like if you're banging your head against the wall and nothing's changing and it's like years, well then you probably aren't investing enough in your skills and talents. But the superpower really truly is consistency and not quitting.
Yeah.
If you can do this and have zero expectation, that's the problem. Everyone's going to have an expectation of what success looks like and how fast you should have that success. It's like, oh my God, this guy just like pulls up his phone and just goes, to parks, and boom, he's making tons of money. It doesn't work like that.
No.
And it doesn't work like that for a very long time. And even now, like the rules of engagement always change.
Always.
Like TikTok could have been banned. So what could I have done? Could I have just sat there and not done anything? Or I know how integral live streams are to my community and group. So we now have added Twitch into the mix for the last 6 months. I never did Twitch, but this old dog can learn new tricks. And I think that's important, is to never once stop, because everyone will stop, especially when it sucks.
Yeah.
So when it sucks, don't stop. And be willing to continue to learn and hone your craft. And that's why, again, it's so important to pick something that you would do even if you didn't get paid in content creation specifically.
Yes.
Because it's very easy to pick up whatever the shiny topic of the day is, whether it's crypto or AI or robotics or automation, whatever you think is the most cool, hip, topical thing. It will not be that after a while. And that's not going to be the community you want to build, because you're doing it for a motive of monetization. The motive should be in the momentum of guiding others. So, and you're the Sherpa. Like, think about that. You're taking them. A good leader is someone who takes a group into places they would never travel without you. So, So I just think that's the big thing for content creation is consistency, putting yourself out there and always trying to better yourself.
Yeah.
How about you, Kate?
Yeah.
What would you add to the mix?
Definitely agree with all of those. I would say, my son is a teenager and we talk creative stuff. He does kind of like video game design stuff. So he asked me my advice as a creative person. He likes video editing too. And so I always tell him I go back to what made Walt Disney so good at what he did was the storytelling. He was a fantastic storyteller. He had people entranced when he was talking about Snow White. He like acted out the whole thing. And that's what got everybody on board to make this Snow White project in 1937, well, a little before that, but you get what I mean. And the point is, I always say, whatever you do has to have a beginning, middle, end. You have to tell a compelling story. Think about it in the story that you're telling and what it means to people. And if you're a good storyteller, people will want to sit down and listen because they like a good story. Who doesn't like a good story? But if you are making content just because you want to push a product or push it can get so, the showcasey kind of Disney content that people do is like, now there's this new treat and here it is. And it's like, and I'm going to eat it and then I'm going to tell you what I think about it. And it's like, there's no story behind that. And like, it's been done a million times. And so the other component of this is you got to figure out what is unique about you and what you have to say. And if everybody else is already saying it, don't say it. There's enough noise out there. Say something different. Say something that's uniquely you, that you're passionate about, that you bring to the table, because that is what will differentiate you. That is what will make your content go places, but it will also feel very authentic because it is you in your content and nobody can replicate that because it's part of you.
Yeah.
And, Kirk, you and I talk about you are like the preacher of like the blue ocean. Maybe you want to mention that real quick because that was something you brought up to me that I thought was such a cool idea.
Yeah. So, what Kate is talking about is an analogy of where you should be. And I'm going to use this from the terms of like thinking about being a shark in the ocean, right? If you're a shark in the ocean, is it better to hunt in the blue section of the ocean or in a red ocean? A red ocean in this analogy would be one that is filled with chum and blood and everybody else is fighting over the same exact thing. Or is it better to go off into a space that nobody really thinks is worth money, nobody really thinks is worth time, but that there are other like-minded people who would enjoy and appreciate this in the way that you're telling it. So blue oceans tend to be much larger, greater, and opportunistic than red oceans. And so, for example, surface level content could be look, this is the new piece of merch that's out, right? But there's ways to tell a story of like watching you on the journey to find this thing and then give your take on it in your own personal, unique way. That's a really simplistic way to take something that's just, here's the stuff,
right?
Versus, I'm going to take you in the parks and this is all the craziness that happened to get us to the stuff. So I think Kate's really good at storytelling, much better than I am necessarily, as I'm more like ad hoc improv style of creator. And so I think it's knowing your skills and talents, not being afraid of that. And the things that you're really weak on, you can spend a little bit of time, but if you're not funny, then don't try to be funny because you've seen other people be funny,
right? Because
it's never going to work because it's never going to fit. If you don't dress a certain way and that's not how you want to present yourself, but you put on this costume to go out into the world because you feel like it'll garner more attention, it will, but now that's your avatar.
Right.
And is that the avatar you want to put into the world? So my avatar is who I am authentically at all times because I don't want to ever be caught out of my personality. So it can be polarizing at times because people will find that they don't like you. And I think as an early creator, you want everybody to know and enjoy and appreciate you because you haven't really catered a community. You're trying to find your tribe and your group. But this is the most important time to dig into who you are so that you can attract the people that will be similar to you or be interested in what you have to say or what gifts you're sharing with the world.
Right. I agree. Like authenticity is such a huge, massive component of this. And like, just imagine if I tried to pretend to be like Kirk for a day, like it would look so awkward on me. Or if he tried
Oh my God, can we do that? Oh my God,
you could try to pretend to be like me, and I could try to pretend.
Oh my God, I would get a suit out.
It would be hilarious though, but we would be so awkward. We would be weird, and people would be like, "What is this? That's not who you are. Like, this is crazy."
That's why people would love it for a day.
They would love it for a day.
But you're totally right. Yeah. All right. Continue what you're saying, because this is fun.
But I think the idea is just really channeling into who you are and not copying people's content, not just in general. You shouldn't copy people's content, but really it doesn't take any creative energy to do that. You're not going to grow as a human, as a person, as a creator, if you're just copying what everybody else is doing. So think outside the box, be who you are, and create something that doesn't exist yet, because the world needs you and what you have to say. And it's important that you put your voice and who you are out there, because otherwise, who else is going to do it? Nobody can be you. Only you can be you. And so don't be afraid of what people are going to say. Don't be afraid of, well, everybody else is doing it this way, so I should probably do it that way too. Like, don't do that. Like, go be weird. Be weird. We need your weirdness. Like, Kirk got where he is because he's weird, and we love him for it. He's so fantastically weird, and it's so quirky and amazing that we love that guy. We just want to be around him all the time. That's why everybody hangs out with him all the time on live streams, because he's so incredibly himself. And that is who you need to be too, is you just need to be 100% fully yourself and not be afraid to share who you are with the world. It's scary. It can be really, really vulnerable, but it's important that you do it, because that is how you become a creator. That's how you become a human that really is living their authentic life. So, sorry, soapbox. I'll step
1,000% agree. No, that was a great. I agree. Yep.
Yeah. So we're winding down here. We only have a couple of questions left, but some of these are really good ones, so I don't want to skip them. Kirk, if Disney offered you a dream project, what would it be and why?
Okay, they're essentially the same in essence. I would love to design a Disney dark ride. That would be my dream project, is to make a Disney dark ride. They would all exist in the Magic Kingdom, because that's my favorite park. And it could be one of 3 different topics. Sleepy Hollow, knock out the Hall of Presidents. Oh, that would feel so good to get rid of the Hall of Presidents. And do that pumpkin themed, like we talked about in the Mr. Toad. That Sleepy Hollow dark ride would have been so interesting.
Yeah.
It would have been so on point and thematic for that area, and people would really appreciate it. Make it 2 floors. We could utilize the space effectively. That would be fun. The other one would be, let's knock out Winnie the Pooh and turn that into an Alice in Wonderland dark ride, or, take over some other space and make it where our teacups can spin, so we can change our perspective in that. I would love for Walt Disney World to have that.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that would be amazing. And then the third one, which actually could have some rooted realism, would be, if they are going to do a Villain's Land, I implore them to bring back the Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom in a new way and make it a dark ride where it's like your total Phantasmic style Sorcerer Mickey pulling up all of the heroes, because the big issue in Villain's Land is that the villains have now gotten together and they're about to take over the Magic Kingdom.
So cool.
Now the Fab Five has to fight to successfully, with like lots of hero cameos within this dark ride of the good versus evil, and lots of tension and pressure. But I think that would be a beautiful, amazing story that would culminate not only Magic Kingdom history, but then also marrying that with some of the most iconic characters and seeing them go toe to toe with those villains, I think would be such an awesome experience.
That would be amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very hopeful that something like that could happen, but who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. It's possible.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like dream projects, like things I would really love to see happen. One is Disney World in the Princess Fairy Tale Hall. That needs to be a Cinderella dark ride. Has to be. Why have we not made that yet? Just saying. Like, it's Cinderella Castle. We've got the carousel. What are we doing? So
Chef's kiss.
that's like my
perfect
my
choice.
Disney World one. In Disneyland, I have like smaller dreams. I have things of like history that I'd love to see return. Of course, I like the paper sun hats that I always wish they would just make for any anniversary. I don't care. Throw it in there for something. I would really love for them to return like an evening live jazz band on the Mark Twain with the mint juleps again. I think that would be appeal to so many people to have this. It still runs in the evening, but it doesn't have live music. Like live music and dancing and like drinks on the Mark Twain. Maybe not alcoholic if they're worried about people going overboard, but something like they used to have would be so great. And what was the last one? Well, I have like small things like I want the signs on Main Street USA to come back because they took those down in the 60s and they've never been back. And that would be great to have. I would really love to see also the original plans for Fantasyland at Disneyland was going to have a second story in the Pinocchio Village house like Disney World has. And that's like one of my favorite places to sit in Disney World. And they just scrapped it halfway through the project. So I would love to have a little bit of a redesign of Fantasyland and get that back. Plus the pirate ship with the lagoon and Skull Rock. That has to come back too. Like I miss that. It's amazing in Disneyland Paris. And I'm sad that we don't have it in Disneyland anymore. Anyway, I have lots of little dreams, but the Cinderella one's a big one.
I'm not going to lie. I feel like, especially with the amount of events that they have at Disneyland and the fact that they do genuinely hold anniversaries in history paramount, I think all of those are possible.
Yeah.
Very possible.
They're not big dreams. They're just little things that maybe we could do. I think the pirate ship would be a big one and obviously the Cinderella ride, but they're just little things that I'm like thinking about that this would be really nice to have. But who knows what will happen. But I think, if I was to do something with Disney, people ask me this all the time, if I could work for Disney, which is not something I'm necessarily looking to do just because I love doing what I do now. And it allows me to spend a lot of time with my family. And I would have to probably move to California or something in order to do something for Disney. But I would love to work with Imagineering on, helping, restore something that's been lost or digging through the archives and helping them research a new project or help giving some history. I would love doing that kind of job where I get to be actively involved in the archival stuff in order to bring something to life. That would be my absolute dream job, or doing some writing for them. Writing would be right up there for getting to do any sort of history writing would be amazing. Or show writing, but I'm not good at that, so I don't know. Who knows? But
I could see that project coming to fruition though too. I also I've always envisioned you doing some sort of on camera, like pouring through and doing like an educational show for Disney Plus. Like I could see that happening.
That would be fun. I'm not a great actress, so we can see how that
No, but
goes.
it wouldn't be acting. It would be you going through like the archives and bringing things back up to life, because they've already had kind of showcasey type things, but I could imagine you running and producing a show like that, but giving a person like you access to primary sources, primary props, documents, that whole entire archival warehouse would be
fantastic.
Like
dream.
It's like one thing for people to have access. It's another for somebody to be so well-read and talented to have access. Like what could they do versus someone with just the stuff?
Yeah. And I love that there are Imagineers that are very passionate about looking back in history and trying to pull things forward. And there are quite a few. So I wouldn't say that like the Imagineers don't do that now, but it would be fun to be able to help them with that. That's all.
I think the biggest thing is that it's not even like the Imagineers' fault. I don't think they're getting the ability to do that because they probably look at some sort of like metric that, oh, well, this doesn't test well, so it'll never happen, when in reality what you're doing is you're building a richer, deeper audience with a very small subset of people who love the parks so much, which then in turn leads to going back to the parks for more.
Yeah And it's a legacy. It's legacy stuff. It's going back to what Walt's Disneyland was like and trying to bring some of those pieces into it. It's really investing in what was in order to also like leave it for future generations, you know. And I don't think it's a museum. I think you and I have talked about this before, that none of these parks have to be a museum, and Walt didn't want that. He wanted things to grow and change and evolve. But because we're where we're at with the park being as old as it is, I think it's okay to want to pull some of the historic things back into the park because they're nostalgic to people before we lose them entirely. You know, I think that's valuable. So,
yeah, I agree.
Okay, we got one last question here as we wrap this up. And for you personally, Kirk, what is something you hope for in the future? Like, what's coming next? What are you hoping for?
In the very short term, this is the last thing that I've created and worked on has been a theme park planning and dining. And I'm thinking about my future self listening back to this episode and having it be a wild success.
The app, you didn't say the app.
But yeah. Oh yeah. It's sorry, I was being more ethereal. We have a planning app. It's called Mode, MOWD, and I haven't worked on one solitary thing. Like there's the business as a whole and there's content creation as a whole, but I haven't worked on like one product for as long as I have. I've worked on a brand, but not a product. So this has taken 2 years to launch. And so in the short term, I'm very hopeful that it really makes a massive impact on people's trips to the point where they can navigate so much more effectively, efficiently, and find not only the attractions and experiences they want, but the food that they want when they want it. And I think that's possible. And for the first time ever, has somebody ever tackled this? And what's so exciting is that it's infinitely scalable. Like we haven't even launched and people are like, hey, when are you adding Disneyland? Hey, when are you adding Europa? Hey, when are you adding so it's like, I'm seeing this, like people want this really badly because they are seeing that gap. So that's like the short term. In the long term, just like project wise, I would love to open some sort of haunt. That's just like a big excitement thing for me. I also want to develop cartoons and some video IPs things with our Walrus brands and really build that out with some cartoon characters that are animated and are other Floridian-based creatures that have their own personalities. So I would like to go deeper into our IP, like our own personal IP for walruscarp. And then the crazy big, hairy, audacious one is to eventually own our own theme park, not amusement park, but theme park before I pass. It is a crazy one and it'll require a lot of time, but I've got a lot of time and I'm okay with it not happening immediately. But there's lots of steps to that process.
Yeah.
So it's those are things that I think will help, you know, they're personal goals of mine, but they're rooted in the fact that it's going to be entertaining. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun experiences for families to enjoy together. And it's going to help people in a different way that doesn't exist with my personal spin. So I'm just excited to maybe bring some of those projects to life in the near term, and then long term, some of those large ones would just be monumentally impactful for when I'm way gone from this planet. So
love that. I love it.
Yeah. How about you? What's some hopes for the future? What's next?
It's tough. You know, Elliot and I, we recently kind of had a summit, you know, thinking about some of the things. Elliot's my husband, for those of you who don't know, thinking about the things that, you know, what do we want to do? And we both kind of reached this place where like, well, we've accomplished a lot of the things that we had planned to do and hope to do. Like we've met a lot of our goals, like we, you know, just like our marriage goals and family goals of owning a home and, you know, all the things that like we did, we've done all of that. We've done, you know, these travel things we wanted to do. We've done so much of it. I wanted to publish a book. Now I published 5. Like, it's like, I wanted to, you know, make this thing into a full-time gig, and I did. And it's like, it feels like, okay, well, what is next? You know, because the thing is, I really love what I'm doing. I just want to keep doing it and do it more, you know? And that's kind of where I'm at this point is, you know, something in the short term that's coming down is I really want to do a fiction series that is based in the Disney parks in certain like decades and eras where we can literally, the characters are living in that decade, and it's historically accurate as much as humanly possible. And there's not that many people that can do that, or the people who do have that knowledge aren't interested in writing a fiction story about it. So writing some historical fiction that's placed in the parks in these eras, I think, is a big goal of mine that's coming up. And that is a massive challenge because I didn't live in those eras. So I have to do lots and lots of research to make sure that it's accurate, not only in the history, but also in the language and the culture and all those things of that era. So I'm going to be living an awful lot in the 50s in the next year. I will say that, which will be really fun. And, I think my ultimate, dream goals would be, to write a book with Disney, and have it in the Disney parks. And I would love to do that. But beyond that, I really just want to write. I want to, continue to create. I would love to do more long form content and really just establish a really good historical archive where I can, be developing this and have these resources available so that these stories don't stop with me, that they get to continue on long past the time that I'm here. So Kirk just commented in the chat that I would argue Kate has been living in the 50s ever since I met her. That's probably true.
Yeah, I feel like it's very fair. I always say this to you, and I know you mirror it, is that you were born in the wrong decade. But it's okay, because if you were born in that decade, you wouldn't have had the scalable impact that you're having now. So
I wouldn't be able to do it either because of being the gender norms and stuff too. Like women historians, like there's no way, I'm sure they existed, but whether or not they actually got to have a voice is all another thing in that era. So I'm grateful to live in this era so that I do get to do what I do and I'm not limited by that. So
exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So I can dress like I'm in that era, but still be able to do what I love.
That's very true.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm still thinking about, big dreams for the future. And I haven't quite settled on anything that's huge yet, but I think that I'll figure it out. But this was my big dream. This is it. I'm literally living my dream. I'm living my dream.
Yeah. I would say typically what happens is the goal line moves. Kate had alluded to this earlier when it comes to views, whether it's like your first 100 view, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, million view video on a content creator aspect alone, the goal line just changes and your feeling and emotions change the more repetitions you get. It's like somebody who's a star athlete playing in a big game. Well, your very first time you play in that big game, it might be very anxious, but the more you play it, the less anxious you get and the more subtleties that you notice and the more comfortability. So, get as many at-bats as possible. Your confidence will grow through repetition and consistency. So it's like not all of us was built very quickly, and it takes a long time, and we still have long journeys ahead of us. And I look forward to, honestly, I would love to do one of these episodes, if it's not yearly, biannually, I think it would be cool to almost as like a time capsule for us and Distory, like our own Distory, of our own journeys. Because I do think people like that behind the scenes, but getting like a catch up, because this will eventually be outdated and our goals will have changed and you'll be in the archives knee deep and it will be like, oh, well, I got to come up with something else now.
It's true. It's true. Because we'll look back on this and be like, wow, remember then that was where we were at that point. It's a little snapshot in time of where we're at right now. And it will be different. It will change. That. Yeah, I think we should definitely do this again. I think it was really, really fun to take a little time out from like the more rigidity of our, history of what we've presented to you guys and prepared for you guys, which we do. This takes hours every week to prepare the things we do for Distory. And I love doing it. I love it. It's so much fun, but it's a lot of work. And so it's really fun to just kind of talk candidly about the things that we do and the life that we lead. And I would say that, being a Disney content creator is super hard, but it's the most joyful, fun thing that I've ever done in my whole life. I've never had this much fun. And I get to really, truly chase my passion and do it with people that I care about at my side, with my husband, my family, my friends. And I just want to echo again what Kirk has said earlier, that our community is amazing community. And historically, Disney communities can go either way. Just saying. There's some Disney communities out there that are not that way. And ours is the best Disney community, because it's a really wonderful group of people that care about each other and are in it all for the right reasons. And I'm very grateful for you. I'm grateful for our Distory audience that has embraced this show so amazingly. Like, Kirk and I didn't know what the heck we were doing when we started this thing with our pirate hats on. But
and I looked at the spice cabinet. Do you remember the spice cabinet was behind me? Oh my gosh. We've come a long way.
We have. And it's the beautiful thing is that everybody's kind of grown with us and, has been around. People still love the Haunted Mansion series. And I look back at that, I was like, wow, I know so much more than I did then, and grown so much. And it's the thing is that we just really, I guess the long and short of it is I'm just very grateful for all of you. So thank you for supporting us as historians, as creators, as people, as humans. We're just really, really grateful for all of you.
Yeah, I'm gonna mirror Kate's sentiment and just say, for the longest time, Kate and I were looking for a show like this, and we recognized that this show didn't exist.
Yeah,
we could find snippets of things, 30-minute, hour-long YouTube videos, maybe some documentary stuff, but all of it we felt wasn't deep enough. So I'll go back to our Imagineering friend Kevin Lively that there are waders, swimmers, and divers. And we were in lots of Disney parks history wading with minimal swimming, and we wanted diving. So we may go very slow, but it's because we want to be as thorough as humanly possible, because this is evergreen content that can be around forever. And a lot of these attractions may not exist, decades down the line. So these can be great resources while we're alive, and being able to take photos and videos of these things that people will be able to piece together great stories, and a lot of things still don't exist. So it's really a great way to hyper fixate on some of the things that we love the most, which thank goodness you and I really like similar attractions.
I know,
and
right?
We kind of like, I almost feel like it's always like serendipitous moment for like when we culminate to, because everybody always wants to know like, what's the next one? What's the big ride? Because everyone has their own big ride that they want us to cover. But Kate and I obviously have to be really into the big ride of the season that takes us months and months and months to go through. And it just so happens that like we get to this point where we're like, we have to do Big Thunder, or we have to do Tower of Terror, So it's beautiful that you and I align with that, and we're very ride people in general. So it makes the show a lot easier and more fun.
Yeah, I would say that you and I, it's so funny because the way we decide what's coming next, it's usually because we're just hanging out in the park together and we go on a ride and we're like, have so many questions about it that are unanswered that we want to know more. And we're just like, well, this has to go on the list then. This is what we're doing. It's not a scientific process. It's very casual, but it ends up, being like, I love this series we're in with Tower of Terror is so much fun because it incorporates the 1950s because of Twilight Zone. It's the 1930s because the time setting it's in, and it's the 1990s for Kirk because of the time that it opened. So it's like the perfect ride.
All hail Michael Eisner. Woo! Thanks, bud, for this ride.
But again, like we did Mr. Toad, and there wasn't a record that existed of Mr. Toad before we conquered that one. It really didn't. There was not good history of Mr. Toad, and now it exists. And it might be way too much history for some people, but for those who really want to know what this ride was like, what are all the little details, what does this thing mean, what's the historical context, now they have it. And I'm so grateful for that. And I just love the weird things we learn on this show when we get to dive into like ladders on this last one. Like chimneys and all kinds of weird things, like who in the world would research that ever? So it's a fun show.
It again, sometimes we just take a lot of things for granted, especially in the parks, as like scene keeping. And sometimes there isn't history about the one specific item, but you just know that it's a part of the place holding to set a picture. But then we deep dive into what that actually means, and then the symbology that comes from either the history or the etymology of a specific item, which I don't know. As a history person, I always kind of like that stuff too, because it's just, I don't know, it's interesting. It's like the history of everyday items coupled with Disney parks, and I just like it.
Yeah, it's a weird little combination of stuff that's in its own blue ocean because nobody's going to do it but us. So it's great. Mm-hmm. It's really fun. And
I agree with you about the Mr. Toad series too, because just there's lots of people who covered it because they love it, but the covering is the same regurgitation.
Yeah.
So that's why I like how much further it went than what most people would ever think of or do.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem with a lot of Disney history is it's just the same old thing recycled in a different format, reskinned. And I'm like, that I told myself I never wanted to do that. If it's already been done before, I'm not going to cover that. And so people will ask me all the time.
Yeah, we're not adding.
Yeah, people ask me all the time to like make content about, the brick test wall on Disneyland, for example. And I was like, here's the thing. Literally everybody who knows Disney history already knows about that wall to some extent. So maybe I'll throw it in as an aside in something that I'm making, but it's not going to be my main focus because it bores me. If it bores me, I'm not going to do it. That's just kind of where it's at, And so I just love this show because it's so unique. And I just love that there's actually people that want to come along on this ride with us and hear these weird things. I love that there's all these Disney people out there. So
I'll just say I never knew how many of us were out there.
Yeah, right? There's a lot.
Because for the longest time, there was just 0 listeners, and it was us just doing this because we wanted to do it. And we found that a lot of times with podcasts, when it came to Disney parks, almost all of it is like things that are happening in the moment, which become not relevant relatively quickly. There are some Disney history podcasts, but they're few and far between. And again, they'll spend an episode on an entire ride where we need to spend 30 episodes on a ride.
Not an exaggeration.
That's just how we roll. That's real. That's real life.
And, we do get people that request things all the time. And I'm seeing that in our chat right now. People request, can you do this? Can you do this? And I will tell you, we have an ongoing list. So people request it. I do add it to a list. However, at the pace that we go at, it might be quite a while before we get to certain things.
It'll be like, hey, we'll get to that in 2032, if that's all right.
And that being said, I just want to say here at the end that I am so grateful for you, Kirk, that you continue to show up to this weird little show that we started in 2022, and that you still show up every week and make this a priority. And you're incredibly busy like I am, and that you choose to do this and sit down with me and chat, and we have fun and we learn. And I'm just very grateful for you as a podcast co-host, but also as a human. I think that you have such an amazing voice of things to share with the world. And I'm so grateful that I get to kind of like run alongside you in our own races and watch you do the things you do, because I think you're an incredible human. And I love the things that you put out into the world and the way that you encourage people, and some of the weird history and stuff, too. I'm so grateful for all the things that is Kirk and that you exist in my world. So thank you for continuing to show up and be here. I appreciate you.
Thank you. That's very, it's hard to, I have a problem with like hearing like lovely things about myself. It's like a character flaw of mine. It's so sweet. And I told you, and I'll give you your flowers again, very briefly, is that just, I'm the lucky one in this group because I get to learn so much that I wouldn't have time to learn through Kate. And I said this the very first time I ever saw your stuff, and how talented you are, and you can't quit because the world needs to know what Kate knows. And the way that you present it is in such a beautiful, lovely way. And this show is just really fun for me to learn and grow and adapt. And as an aside, as like a creator network, this is just one more piece of advice for creators to bring it home, is surround yourself with people that will help bring you up, because show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And if Kate's my friends, my future's great. So thanks, Kate.
Same for Kirk. Yeah. What is it? What is it? The one about the ships? A rising tide raises all ships, I think is the expression,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like we can all just go up together. And I think that's how I feel about it. And so I'm just very grateful for all of this journey. I never ever thought that I would be here where I am at all. But it has come with a tremendous amount of work and perseverance and choices that I've made to do good things and choose well. And I know you have too, Kirk. So we hope that you guys enjoy.
Nah, it's been easy. It's been easy. It was like a joke. I walked into this. I took one video. Now I'm a millionaire. I roll in my Benz. It's easy. It's none of those things.
Media, like the second post you made for Disney.
Oh my gosh. Crazy.
No, well, we hope that this conversation maybe helped you get to know us a little bit. Maybe it was a little bit encouraging to wherever you're at in your own personal journey, whether it's for creation or not. We just really appreciate all of you guys and hope that this was really for you guys to get to know us a little bit and be encouraged. So thank you for hanging out with us on this bonus episode of Distory. Kirk, do you have any final things here as we wrap up?
Whatever's important to you in your life, please don't quit on it. If it's important, continue working on it, even if it's small, little one step at a time, because those chip-aways will lead to a beautiful masterpiece.
Yeah, I would piggyback on that and say, like Walt would say, keep moving forward. You know, even if you mess up, even if you make a mistake, don't let that drag you down. Realize that that was something you can learn from and keep moving forward because the world needs what you have to say. So thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us and being here for this special bonus episode. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time for another episode of Distory.